All right, so what we're working on here is basically, see if we can get this to actually run. I'm not sure what that little dot is. There's a dot on my screen. Had to delete it. Anyway, we're going to try and build the 3D model, so we're going to go into the elevations. And looks like that was put there. I could probably just pull that back. This is kind of where it's always good to have your slabs be set at certain points, so you can always push them back at known distances, whether it's 50, 100, 150, whatever it needs to be. But alright, so going back down to the main level, because we're gonna, it looks like most of the house originates off that level. So first thing we want to do is the walls here are 10 feet, so we're going to set that right off the bat. We're going to go into the settings, and the height to the next level will be 11 0 and 5/8, which is a 1 5/8 inch floor and a or a 108 5/8 slab, and then a 10-foot tall ceiling, which looks like that's screwed up here. And let's fix this little bit, because for some reason it said 3. Okay, 11 0 and 5/8. Hit OK. So that was option 8 gets you into story settings. Alright, so from there, what we want to do is go into our roof plan and set the height, the bearing height of the roof at 10 feet. Get all the way over here. The thickness would be 1-0 and 1/2 inch. And in this case, it's an 8/12 pitch. Make sure that your 8 feet corresponds with the 8 feet here. If you change it to inches, then it'd be 8 inches corresponding there. All the rest of this stuff doesn't really matter too much. The roof needs to be in 3D. So the first thing we're going to do is on this house, and I've in the other window I've got a picture of the front elevation. But it looks like on this house where you have a hip on the front, and then we'll probably put a gable out the back and match very similar to what we did on a couple of the other houses. So we're going to come in here and we're going to put our bend line right off the bat, and we're going to, for now, we're just going to create some slabs that we can work with, because we're going to do a lot of editing inside of 3D. So I've got this bit, and it's going to drag out to about here, but we're also going to take and copy this right like that and bring it down. Now the thing about columns is the bend line always has to be 3 inches in. You can see that right there, just like that. And so when we bring this over here, now we can play the game of holding down the command button. So selecting it, hold down the command button, and then clicking on that, and it will adjust itself to it. From there, we know that the roof overhang is 2 feet in this situation. And so we'll just match that right here, just like that. And we're going to squish this back a little bit. I'm going to take this same element, since I can, put it right there, move it in the 3 inches because it's a column, and you'll see that it also lines up with the wall there. That's how I set all of my columns. And we're going to drag this all the way back to about here. Oops. To about right there. And then option click that, and you'll see where that's actually going to join itself up to the point that now if you click this, it gives you that. This is going to be a gable end, so we can just drag that straight out. And from here, we'll copy it over, and that'll work out perfectly. Now, let's see here. looks like we have it a little bit off center, so we're going to want to come in. That's actually really interesting because it's properly centered off this element, but what we might want to do is get it centered off there, which becomes a bit problematic if you start looking at their elevations, because their elevations don't actually line up with this. That's not terribly uncommon for that to happen, unfortunately. So I'm not sure how we'll solve that one. We'll have to figure that out. But we're going to leave that for now, understanding that things just change. We're going to drag a copy all the way over to here. Now, what's going to happen is this roof and this roof are actually going to intersect, and it's going to be a triple gable effect. And so what you do is you come over here, just select somewhere in here, hold down, and you're going to bring up the pet palette, click the create a new point marker, and it's going to actually be right there. And that is going to then bring this up somewhere into here. It's going to match it up to that point, just like so. This is going to get dragged out until it reaches that point right there. And then if we and let's see, this is going to ramp up. We're going to add a point where it impacts right there, because this roof actually pulls out to create kind of a Dutch gable situation, and then this roof and this roof will intersect. So same thing here, we're going to add another point and then stretch this element right there until it matches up there. Select this one, match it up again. Now we're going to come back and stretch this down to meet up right there. Now we've got that line, and that is going to actually come through. We'll add a point here and stretch this down to this point. And so you can kind of see that things are starting to take place. We'll drag this window into here, and you can see how everything is starting to line up. And right away we can see that's a problem. And so we'll have to deal with that. What is our pitch on this thing? Yeah, it's an 8/12 pitch. Sometimes the pitch at certain angles just looks all wrong. Now, I am such that I tend to work a lot in the 3D model and in the 2D model, kind of basically whatever just suits my purposes. That's just me, and there's no real right or wrong. I find it works for certain things, and for certain things it doesn't. But sometimes it's just helpful to be able to see things in 3D and how they're going to interact with each other. Right away, we can already see these windows are going to be a bit problematic on a couple fronts, because they are a bit of an egress situation, and you can already tell that we're going to have trouble with that. So we got to figure that out, because right now they're supposed to be centered underneath that ridge, and it does not look like that's actually going to be possible. So let's go back to our 2D, and we are going to come up to our upper level here, and on this upper level, this entire element is going to be a low slope roof, and we'll actually go into it, and we're going to set it at 312 and just start right here, push it all the way over to here, and then we'll select that again. There we go, and stretch that out 1/6, 2 feet, and 1/6 right there. We've got to remember to actually set the height of that at 9 feet, because everything on the upper level is 9 feet. Then we'll go back to the upper level, or to the 3D model, I mean. We can see we're going to need to bring this through, so let's go back down to this model, and if we show the trace layer, it's actually not going to show that in that aspect. So, but if we come over to this window, we can show the trace layer as everything's turned on, and in that situation, oftentimes you can see right here in the ghost, you can see where the edge of that roof is. The other thing you can do is to go up here, go up to the level, select the roof, go into and then go into the settings, Command T in, and then right here on floor plan display says show on stories home story only. Now since we're on the upper level, we want to show one story down, home story and one story down. And what it's going to do is show in dashed lines what it looks like on the lower level. You can see that right there. So much so that I can now take this element of the roof, project it all the way to here, and then add some points right there, and then right there, and proceed to stretch that back all the way to here, and we're going to set it right to there, and then we're going to command click the roof above and see where it terminates, and it looks like it's going to terminate right past that ridge. So that's problematic. So what we need to do at this point is go up to there, and we need to fix that because that's not going to work for us. So let's set that at 2-6, and that gets us really close. Yep, right there. So that's good. So now we can come back and we can click the adjust tool, and it'll get us right back to there. And that's with a 2.5 12 pitch. And so if we want to, let's just for the fun of it see what happens when we go to a 212, because it's going to have to be that way anyway. That looks a little bit closer to what they had in mind, and I think that will appropriately work. So you can see that right there. Now this roof obviously needs to project in front of that, so we just stretched it. And if you're trying to stretch in the 3D window, you need to find known points. See, like right there's a known point, and it'll lock to that. But if you want to go beyond that, so you get it to that point and then go beyond it, and you can then just type 1-6, which is the overhang, and it'll stretch out to that. Same thing over here. And boom, you're right there. Perfect, easy as can be. Okay, now if we hit the O key, the letter O, not the number 0, we can come around to the back, and I think the easiest solution would be just to put a gable out this back end. So you can see here, if we come over here, that's about what that looks like, and I'll show you how to trim this stuff all at the end. But well, I guess we can do that right now. So you're going to want to select on the wall, come to the corner. You'll see the corner right there. It's all highlighted. Click and hold, and then you're going to come down on the pet palette, and you're going to select that tool, stretch it all the way to the top, and then the thing to do is to select the roofs that you're going to trim to, and then hit Option T, crop the top element, and there you go. Now it's appropriately in this position that it needs to be. It's cropped and everything. Okay, so let's go back to the roof tool, and we are going to stretch it out 5/4, and then let's see, 1-3. It's 1/6, but remember we're always 3 inches in on a column. We're going to come over here, and we're going to add a point, bring it back to the wall, and we're going to stretch this wall all the way back to basically the center of this door, which should be the center of the 2 columns. If it's not, then we'll have to adjust, because that's ultimately what we're going for. And see, you can see now I'm going to put the bend line here, but that's just because I have to. I don't have anywhere else to really put it at this point. And so it says 6/6. That would add up to, we're just going to go with that. Sometimes it's easier than trying to do the math in my head. And then we'll come in after the fact and go 1-9 for the 3 inches, and then we'll just move it 3 inches. That gets us right. That gets us to the appropriate spot of where we want to be. And then again, we hold down the command button and we can click to adjust. And then same thing there. And you can see that already it's not centered the way we want it to. So it says 6.3 there and 5.6 there. So what we need to do is let's verify this. 6.3, 5.6. So if we want to get that thing centered, we have a couple options. We can either take and move that to 4.5 inches, which gives us what on the side? 1.7.5. Or we have to do a little bit of math to get that to work appropriately. Let's see what this is. We may just move that 11.9. All right, we're going to move this 3 inches so that we have an even 12, and then readjust like so. And now from there, we're going to get our door, and we're just going to move the door 3 inches. And we'll want to go back to the floor plan and fix anything necessary. So you can see right here where the trim needs to stretch a little bit. So we'll just drag a marquee around that, make sure the grouping's turned off, and then stretch it. Easy as can be. Easy as can be. Go back into your elevations by hitting Command L to get into elevations, in case you didn't remember that. And now you can see that that's there. So hit the letter 0, or the letter O, excuse me, not, and then we're going to try and have to take this and stretch these up to the top. You can see that, and then what we did was I just trimmed it. So again, select the wall you want to trim, select the roof you want to trim, Option T, crop top element, just like that, easy. And we come over here, we'll just select all these little elements right here, and then select the roof itself, Option T again, crops it in there, just nice. Sometimes you have situations like this where these roofs aren't lining up, and it's really important to get them vertical, because it just, over the course of the job, you'll cut through it and you'll have to fix that angle. It's not really necessarily a big deal, but it's just a cleanliness thing, and it ultimately makes your life a little bit easier. So you can click on I'll show you how to do it one more time here. So you can click on an edge. So click on the edge, it'll bring up the pet palette, and you click on that far right icon right there. It brings up, says Edge Angle Other, and you just hit vertical or perpendicular if that's what you're looking for. And you can see that this edge right here needs to be fixed, just like that. And so it's a good thing to do. It creates kind of clean edges. It solves a lot of, and if it already says vertical, then you're good to go. I just come over here, other angle, vertical. But it does do a rather nice job of cleaning up just messy little bits that are always a little bit problematic. At least to my way of thinking. I don't like leaving those just kind of just sitting there. I always thought they looked badly. And if it's already there, just hit OK. And so you can click on the letter O key and rotate around the house and try and find some of those areas where you want to either stretch the wall up to the height so that it's clean, and then again Option T brings up that, making sure that you've selected the roof, and hit crop, and there you go. Same thing here. You can see where, let's click on that and come over to the pet palette, vertical. It already says vertical there, so let's click it there. Oh, there's another angle. Click vertical, and there it just solved itself. And it's clean, it's nice, it works out really, really well. And that already says vertical. Now these things aren't entirely necessary to do, but I find that it just goes a long way to creating a product that by the time you push it into elevations and sections, it makes it a little bit easier to work with. Like I said, it's not necessary. I just think it's just something that's just clean. It's just cleaner. It's just the way, kind of the proper way to do things. Let's see what happens if we push this up to an 8-foot head. I think we're going to have to do that, which is really weird because everything in here is off of a 6'8" head height, but in order to get that roof to work out properly, why is it not opening? There we go. In order to get that roof to work out properly, I think we're just going to have to go with it. And it's its own little element, so I think we're just going to go with that. And we'll have to talk to the architects and see what they have to say, but I'm not sure that they have a lot of choice because they've got to get this to work. And sometimes that's just the way it is. So let's turn back on our elevation layer. And we'll go down here. Now this is the other little problem area which we're going to have to look at, because by all accounts they're going to want the center to be off these columns. So let's see what happens when we look at it in elevation. It may just hide itself, and if it hides itself, then that's just fine. It's not a big deal. But we went to our front elevation, control click, rebuild from model. I should show it. Zoom in. And you know what? That looks fine. I think what we'll do here is we'll actually go and center. We'll move it over a few inches and center the door under the ridge and not under the not in the wall space. And it's not common, but I think it'll be okay. And what's happening underneath in this area here where this ridge is going to come through is going to telegraph more in this space of it not being centered under the door than anything. And so I think that's probably the appropriate solution. Again, you know, the architects, they may think of things differently, but that's on them and they can do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm the one who has to actually make this thing buildable, so, you know, nuts to them. Coming back here, let's go and stretch this all the way back up. There's something there. I don't know if it's farther back in relationship to things, but you select that, Option T, and you're good to go. And so there you have it. A rather simple model. Oh, we could push that up a little high. And Option T to trim. Here we go. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. And so there's these little bits that are kind of poking out there. I don't worry about them because they're not a part of the model. By the time we actually do the elevations, we'll solve those elements. This is a really weird space. I'm wondering if we could solve that somehow by hipping it around. These aren't really the most high-end homes, and so I'm sure they'll sell for a fortune, but they're not really that great of homes. But yeah, so that's where we're at. So having said all that, I think we're going to leave it here, and hopefully that was somewhat helpful of a tutorial. But thanks for watching.